Hello, this is my Roland MC-505. This is a music composition device that I purchased several years ago to help me in making music for my videos. And while I initially thought I was going to try and make music for every single video, I decided that wasn't really my style and I didn't want that because, well, making 30 to 40 minutes of music per video going to be kind of a lot to ask for. So it's really found its niche more in filling gaps for videos in recent times. And it's actually been featured in every single video since I got it because this is how I wrote the intro music for my videos. But this thing has its limitations and I've been looking out for its successor, the MC-505. Now, this MC-505 I actually have to thank Jimmy for in Surprise, Arizona. Now, Jimmy actually passed this on locally to me because it was broken. Keyword was. Now, originally this video was both going to cover what it took to repair this 505 as well as how to use it, but it needed a lot more work than I initially expected and is much more complicated to use than I can really give it justice in this video. So for now, we're just going to focus on what it took to get this thing going, which was quite the journey. Alright, so this is my first real day with this thing here, and I need to do some diagnostics with it because it's definitely not working right, and I need to figure out exactly what's wrong with it. So let's go ahead and take a look at this thing as much as we can right now to determine what all is going to need to be done. First off, we can see one knob is missing there, two buttons are missing there, this knob is a little askew. I don't know if that one is failing or not. With how these knobs go together, I may need to replace that one. But there are some more hidden issues here as well. So let me make sure. Yeah, I'm on an instrument that you can actually hear right now. So that key's working. That one's not. So up until about that point, every other key does not work on this thing. So that's one issue. Here's another one. So I'm gonna let it run. Okay, and I'm gonna bring up, well, let me first demonstrate this. So if I bring that in, okay, I'm gonna mute all the other channels here, just so that you can tell exactly what's going on. These faders allow you to control each individual channel's audio. But let's say 5 here, that fader isn't working. And I believe, yeah, there are multiple faders that are not working here. I don't think that is an issue with the faders themselves because this just continues around two different parts of this thing. It seems like some buttons on this just don't work. So, I mean, in going along with the keys there, we need to figure that out. Aside from that, everything else does seem to be working, so let's just change over to another track here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the D-beam, and that does work. So that is an IR distance sensor that is sort of analog control for things. It's weird. But that does work, which is good because that's weird. Everything else seems to work. Adjust the resonance, good. LFO, that knob works. This knob works. Well, I know both of these knobs work at least. And that's good about those. Those are 2 gang knobs because they're actually analog. All of the other ones are linear. Now I'll go ahead and throw this in here right now with a screenshot of the service manual for this thing. The potentiometers that are underneath all of the knobs are actually specified in that document, so you can see exactly which parts they used. Those particular ones are out of stock though, but we can get modern replacements for them still. And I did actually end up doing that with the volume knob on my Roland MC-505, but I don't think I actually included that in a video anywhere because it was pretty simple. But we are going to be going more in depth on this one. I think we have determined that it's broken. It works. So if I do this, we're getting full audio. We're getting individual channel stereo. So there's left unplugged, there's right unplugged. So that's working. The actual song capabilities still work fine. Let me just restart it here. So I'm gonna go into the song mode here, and then I'm gonna pick let's say this song, although you can see there are some minor issues with the LCD here. That may need to be addressed. It might be as easy as going in there and trying to get zebra cables to be reattached a little better. I do know people sell aftermarket displays for this, so that might be an option. It really doesn't look too much more complicated than a 16:2 character display, though I can tell those are custom graphics, but I don't think it'll be too complicated. These I know are just standard 3-digit 7-segment displays, so those are really easy to change out, and they're the same as the MC-303 as well. Although, looking at the camera, I guess the flicker rate for these is different, or the PWM rate, so that's at least mercifully better. But yeah, for an audio sample, if I just played this, the full logic of how it advances the song and changes parts all work. So you'll see it will automatically mute, and it will also change the volume of different parts on this. All right, so I think my next steps are going to be taking this thing apart and just figuring out what the issues might be. So I'm gonna get started on that. Okay, so that is the bulk of it disassembled. The LCD is not here, but I'll bring that back in a moment because I am very optimistic about it. But here we have the main logic board, and this really doesn't have anything on it that I think is going to strongly indicate an issue. So I don't think there's anything that we're going to need to work on this at this time. I will say it's a little surprising that this does not have the blue extra layer of traces. It's actually a proper two-sided board without other finishings on top of it. All the Roland stuff I've opened from this time does have extra layers on it, so that's just a little unusual to see. But this is probably where all of our issues are. Now, if I flip this over, you'll see all of the cables that wrap around. They go over to the connectors on this board all the way around it to actually send the matrix that is every single button and fader and potentiometer on this thing. Now, I found at least one of the pins here that was bent back on one of the cables, so that would have been one part of the matrix that wasn't working, but I'm not seeing anything super obvious beyond that. So I think one of the things that I'm gonna do here is test that I am getting continuity from the points on the PCB all the way to the tips of the cables for every single cable, just to make sure that they're all still good and intact. I might try and wiggle them a little bit, just make sure it's not sporadic. But other than that, I'm really not seeing any problems as far as the matrix should be concerned. These buttons all feel really good, so I don't see a reason for every other one to be bad either. Unfortunately, the key buttons are a little weird. I'll get a shot of those in a little tighter in a moment. But those are fine for now, I think. So yeah, I'm hoping there is a trace that's not working correctly somewhere. Underneath of the piano keys, you can see there is a soft rubber dome button. It's not just a tack switch. And they feel pretty consistent, so I don't think there is a problem with just half of these. It really seems like a matrix issue. For right now, though, let's take a closer look at the potentiometers because, there's more going on there than I anticipated initially. Now, I think it's fairly obvious that this potentiometer is bad. So I'll be replacing that one for sure. However, looking over here, I can see this one, and these fingers are wrapped around the top. This is how the potentiometer is constructed, and the looser those are, the more this top piece wobbles back and forth. You can actually see how it can get out from underneath of those. If you just pull on that while it's like that, it'll actually tear apart. You can see here, these ones are nice and tight around there. So I'm actually considering that one failed as well, so I'm gonna want to replace that one too. Thankfully, I believe that is another, yes, non-detented one. I already have a part picked out for these, so that won't be too bad. This one up here, as an example, is detented. And the way they denote it on here is they say with click on the PCB, which is kind of funny. But thankfully, all the detented ones look okay. You can see the strength of the fingers on there looks pretty good. That one, a little loose there, actually. That might be worth considering replacing. How's that one? I don't know. Maybe, because, yeah, that one feels really tight. You know what? I think I might count that one as in for replacement as well. That one's just exceptionally bad. Those two look good. That one, it's bent, but the fingers haven't let go. So if I grab the body and I rotate it, I think it'll be fine. That one also looks good. And then the two volume potentiometers look fantastic. And using this bar across the two of them was actually a really good design, whether or not Roland intended it, because that made them way stronger. So that's actually probably the best protected set of potentiometers. The faders here, again, some of these were not working. They all feel the same, so I'm gonna guess it's another matrix issue, not an issue with the actual parts. The rotary controller was fine, so I don't think I'm gonna have to worry about that. And again, those keys, I really don't think there are any issues. So, yeah, I think we're all good. These are, oh, those are strange. Okay, let's hope that none of those are bad. I'm not seeing anything on the top side other than the damaged potentiometers that I really am going to need to replace. So I think checking the cables is going to be the next best step. Okay, turns out I left my mic off for a bunch of stuff here, but I've done a bunch of testing here, and I'm just gonna summarize it, because no real solid conclusions have been made yet. So I have this set up, so you should, yeah, you can hear this. Firstly, though, if I play music here, the channels that were not working before, but the faders, now work. Let me mute that one. So I think that was the one pin that was slightly bent that I noticed. I bent that back and reassembled this, and that seems to have fixed it. So that was the only issue from the bent cables, but the keys not working seems to be a different problem. And I actually noticed something extra interesting here. If I hold down one of the keys and press play, you'll see that it flickers, which is really weird. So that is strange, and it made me investigate the power supply, but the voltage rails in the power supply are all fine. Or at least they were when it was paused. Now I'm wondering if maybe I should do it while it's playing. I'll check that in a moment. But I also noticed something here. So that key lights with the LED, and it makes sounds, but this one makes sound without the LED lighting. So that one's unique there. None of the other ones do that. But all of the switches are fine, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. That's a little weird. So I have the schematics for this thing, and there are actually schematics for the panels. So I'm gonna start poking around with this and see what I can figure out. If maybe there is like a diode or something that's gone bad in there for the matrix, and see if I can figure out why these keys aren't working. But first, let me check power supply voltages while this is playing sound to see if I can figure out what's going on with that flicker. And I'm gonna have it make all the sounds it can here while that's going on. And yeah, it's good. Okay, so playing or not playing doesn't really make a difference with the power supply. So that flickering is very strange. All right, I found something. So this scan row of keys works entirely, but this row doesn't, except these two keys. 80 is the one that works as a switch but then doesn't light up, and then 82 is the one that just fully works. Now, these diodes are not LEDs. There's a separate matrix up above for just LEDs. If I go up here, yeah, so you can see here, here's an LED matrix. So it's different, or is that it down there? Oh, you know what? I bet it's it down there. So that's a little weird. I don't know quite how these two would work, but then these wouldn't unless there was a trace break between there and there. That could potentially explain it, except it seems like it would have to go through what looks like the base of that transistor over there, which is right here on the board. So I'm gonna probe around with that now that I figured this out. So we'll see what we can find. Okay, the switch input on the transistor for the keys that works goes from 4.3 volts to 1.3 volts. So that doesn't seem right, but if I go to the other one, it never changes when I press the key. So it seems like that transistor isn't being pulled low like it should be. So getting closer to a potential outcome here. So now I'm going to, I guess, take all of this out and do a lot more diagnostics, unpowered, and see if I can figure out if there is a trace break or something in here. So this is going to be some off-camera stuff because I'm just going to have to get in here and really put my nose to the grindstone. Got it! It's not what I initially thought it would be. Something I probably should have guessed for a circuit board that is so substantially large, though. So I was doing continuity tests between point to point on here, getting a beep, and then I would go from here to here, get a beep. We can see that trace down there, and then go from here to here, and nothing. Because if you look at it at just the right angle, that is a crack in the PCB. And I'm actually surprised it's not affecting more switches, because that's pretty bad. And it looks like it curves up around there. So I'm guessing something got dropped on the face of this and crushed these keys down into there. Yeah, you can really see how that is at a different angle on there. So I need to look closer at this bottom board and find all of the cracks on here and get those bridged across. But at least I now know what the problem is. It's not quite electrical, it's more mechanical. Still in causing electrical issues, but I have a good lead now to go on. Okay, after looking around, it seems to be the crack that goes along here. Alrighty. Kind of goes to there. There's something that's a scratch right there. That's not too bad. There was one other crack around this area. So it's about there. I didn't see it continue any farther into anywhere that's actually a problem, though. So I think that one's okay. I don't see any other cracks anywhere else on the board, so I think it's just these two, which kind of makes sense. This is the buttons here are really prominent, easy to hit, so it makes sense it would crack along that, especially with all the holes that the buttons have to have. So if I strip back the, the solder mask and bridge those, and then carefully put it back together, I bet all of those keys will work. And I think that trace at the bottom, which is the one for the odd-numbered key switches, is probably just slightly connecting, which would explain why it was flickering if it's a really high resistance there. I can't get that to easily fluctuate, but I bet it's something like that, or possibly that is the line for the LEDs. So that could be why maybe one of those is weak. But still, the crack is in this area, so that makes sense. I'm gonna work on those areas now and try and get it all fixed. I just did something accidentally really helpful. You see how it's now blue down in the crack, so I had wiped off the Sharpie that I'd put on there with some isopropanol because I wanted it on there when I was filming, but I didn't want to leave it on there while I was trying to solder. But now I'm gonna put a black mark right there, and then I'm gonna do the same thing, get some isopropanol on a toothbrush and wipe it up. But what's gonna happen is that, yeah, it seeped down into the crack, which actually made it more visible. That's gonna be helpful for identifying where the cracks are. The same thing happened on the other side. So that's actually a kind of little handy trick to have there, putting some Sharpie on there and then smearing it with isopropanol so that it wicks down into the board. Yeah, that's going to make this way easier to keep track of those cracks now. And then I will put that on top of the crack. There we are, that's attached. Pinch and break the wire while it's sitting on top. I'm gonna reflux this one more time and then heat it so that it will settle into place. And there we are. That is bridged, and that's what I'm gonna do for the rest of these. Okay, I got my 2 wires bridged there that are for the main key bus, and I added a couple here and there that I think are actually for the LEDs, so that hopefully will solve that. They just looked slightly cracked, and the traces are at like a really weird angle. I couldn't put some flat wire in there like I would have preferred to do, so I tried to route the bodge wires where the traces would have been. So I think that will solve it. So I'm going to put the logic board back on here now and see what happens. All right, it's put back together enough to test here. I have not turned it on yet, so let's see if that fixed the even numbered keys. All right. Yes! Oh my gosh. Oh, that's it. That's all functional. Oh yes. Okay. I think that's gonna be, I think that's it. Potentiometers now, and this thing will be done. Okay. Whew. That's, oh man. Yep, LED traces all the way across now. Oh, that's excellent. Okay, there is one other thing to do. The LCD, I think we can actually fix that. So I'm gonna go grab the front faceplate and we'll see what we can do about that. Because again, I do think I have a solution. All right, so this is the flex cable that goes up to the logic board and it attaches there, and the far side pin down there is not doing super great, but I don't think that's it. But this is exactly what I was talking about. That is the zebra cable connection. So there will be Z-conductive tape that is used to connect this ribbon cable to the PCB, and that can come loose over time. So one of the ways that you can fix this is by heating a piece of metal and putting it on top of that. I think another way I did it was by using my heat gun with a piece of Kapton on there and then heating it up. So what I'm gonna do is I might even just use my soldering iron here. I'm gonna put some Kapton on top of this because it is it's better for thermal protection. So I'm gonna put this here like that, and now I'm just going to gently press against this, and that should reheat the adhesive and press it down and in again. And I'm just going to very quickly go across this. Definitely made it better. Maybe not perfect, but it made it better. There are some missing lines still, like on that P, but it's getting closer and better. So I'm gonna give it one more pass now. All right, this time you can see how that P is better. I kind of lost one side of that O. That tends to happen. It's actually a lot easier. We can do this while it's running. I might try and rig this so that I can see it while I'm doing it. That's gonna be really tough here though. Maybe it's worth trying to peel off this protective thing, and then I can just do that. Because then you can massage each line as you go along, and yeah, that tends to make it a little bit easier to do this, but definitely making progress, and this is the issue. Ugh, man, that sucked. So yeah, that cover is glued in, and now I can remove the display and work on those lines individually. All right, now I can turn this on, haha, and see the display all at once and just flip this back and forth. And if I squish on this, yeah, so I can see just squishing the cable there, changing the contact. So yeah, I just need to find the right balance here. So I'm gonna go through and just try and heat bar these until everything comes through. Yeah, all right, scrolling through, I think all of the elements of the display are fully functional again. So that is good to go. Okay, it's been a few days and I have parts. So what I did is I actually ordered one of each type of potentiometer. So the volume potentiometers are the most obviously different. They have two gangs because it's stereo audio, left and right channel. So they modify two potentiometers at once when you turn the knob. The other knobs, especially the ones that I would need to replace here, are just general potentiometers. They only have a single gang, one wipe, so they are pretty easy to figure out. But there are some other ones. The ones labeled with click on the board actually have a center detent point, and I went ahead and ordered some of those as well. Actually, I think just two, just to make sure that they look like they'd be correct, because I'm detailing all the information about this repair on Caps Wiki so that anyone else who needs to get one of these going, because these knob failures are kind of common, will be able to just look at the part numbers on there. So let's actually take a look at this. All right, now first off, the volume pot, and I'm gonna guess on most 505s this won't be bad, but this was absolutely bad on my 303 because it's a little weaker mounted. But on here with this dual plate thing, yeah, I bet it'd be fine. So flipping this over, looking at the footprint, yeah, that's perfect. So I can confirm the volume pot would be just fine. Now, I'm not going to be installing this, but I really don't mind having the spare parts on hand because I like Roland stuff. Okay, next let's check a center pot. Now, this is the one that was the most suspicious looking. I believe that one is the LFO pot, so let's take a look at that. I actually did order two of these just in case I ended up needing to replace one. I haven't been able to test everything on here, so I'm not 100% sure. So just to confirm, yes, that has the center detent in the same place, and if anything, I would say that center detent is much, much more pronounced. Huh. Well, that could be an indication of that. Also, I may have got the shaft height wrong on these. Was that the same on the volume one? Let me double check that. I wonder if these are 20 millimeter shafts. Uh-oh, that could be a problem. Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay, well, huh. All mine are going to be a little short, but I will update that information on Caps Wiki. Hopefully that's not a problem. See, ooh, okay. Good to know. I really wasn't sure how they measured it. So I measured the actual shaft, but apparently it includes the threads as well. Well, that kind of sucks. But the center detent feels right. The footprint matches, so that's good to know. Unfortunately, though, we get to the other ones that are the ones that I actually need to replace, and they're gonna have the short shaft there, so all right, so this is going to go here in place of that one. I'm curious how this is gonna work out now, because yeah, that's it's way shorter than it should be, just flipping it upside down with how it mounts. So, a little nervous there, but let's go ahead and remove this, and we'll see. I'll fit it into the front plate and see if the knob can actually attach to that. It goes kind of concave up into there. It really may not. Ooh, or it's going to be extremely loose. So we'll see. All right, so while I was fixing the crookedness, I attempted to pull it up slightly. So it's not flush mounted with the board, but that gave me a little more height. So that's about how much it's missing, like 2 millimeters maybe. I might even be able to get a little bit more out of it. So I think I'll be able to make it work, but yeah, the taller ones would be more correct. All right, so a bit of a moment of truth here. Let's see. Oh, that's cake. That's not even slightly a problem. Yeah, that'll be fine. If anything, I actually need to push it down even more. It apparently mounts quite deeply on these. Yeah, it's actually rubbing on the case. Okay, so I don't have to worry about it at all. Okay. Whew. I will say, if it's tighter on those than it does on this, so that shaft may actually be narrower. That feels a little loose, like that. But it'll work at least. Oh, whew. Okay. Bullet dodged there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get this one out now because I'm pretty sure if I tried it all, yeah, that it'll just self-destruct. So yeah, that one should realistically go too. So let's get this flipped over and get that one out. All right. That is every repair I think I need to do on this now, actually. So now it's just the reassembly. So I'm gonna go ahead and work through that. It's gonna be a little trickier than I initially intended because a bunch of the buttons fell off. So I'm actually gonna have to find a photo online for reference to get this put back together. Okay, after a lot of work and fighting this stupid thing, I have it assembled enough to test, and it is working. Okay, so I can at least feel good that it's all back together and functional. One line of the display there did actually revert. That's probably going to be a losing battle. If I could get to it without completely tearing it apart again, I would, but there are so many screws that go into this that I'll live with one line being bad. There are display replacement kits for this thing available, like I mentioned. I may look into that, because these old LCDs are just not amazing to begin with, so that might be something to look into. But to test the new knob here, let me do this. Yep, that is working. I don't know how to use the EFX yet, so I'm gonna have to learn that one. But yeah, everything else seems to be totally functional. And there we are, all back together and fully functional. That is a working MC-505. Oh man, it was actually kind of a big pain in the butt to put back together, and I had to take it apart multiple times. Something to watch out for if you happen to be working on one of these is that all of the buttons have a little post that goes down onto the tack switches, and if the buttons aren't aligned correctly, the post can end up beside the tack switch and then is jammed in place. Thankfully, I caught that before I fully put it back together, and none of the posts broke, but I could actually see that being an issue, so definitely keep an eye on that. But I'm gonna call that good enough for this video now. I do want to get into really demoing this thing and showing off what it can do, but I need to spend more time learning how to use it. So before I do that, I'm going to actually use this thing for a while. I'm gonna take my time to get to know it, come up with different ways of utilizing it, and just learning more about it in general. I have things like smart media cards on the way for it so that I can better demonstrate that. And I want to play around with it with other MIDI devices a bit more still. So I definitely have some stuff that I need to learn, but it really is easy to get set up and working with. So I'm hoping it won't be too long, but like I said, I want to take my time with it. A massive shout out to Jimmy again for sending this thing. It's fantastic, and I am really looking forward to getting to learn it more. But I do want to give you a little bit of a taste of it though. So I'm going to end this video with me performing a pattern that's built into this thing in a different way than the song that it comes with intends it to be played, just so that you can get an idea of how much flexibility there is in this with how it works. If you enjoyed this video, you may want to subscribe to be notified when I release another one. If you want to help support the channel, you can find me on Patreon. But for now, that's it, and I'll see you next time.